afternoon, everyone. My name is Don Parkinson, and I'm a consultation specialist with Atkins Realis. Today, we are continuing with our series of radio show topics as our project moves closer to consultation round 3 of the environmental assessment phase. The topics we are covering parallel our project activities or are of community importance, so we hope these will help our viewers and listeners better understand the project and provide input along the way. We are broadcasting on the Wapiti Radio Network to help reach community members about our project. Listeners can call or text us with questions and comments about the project at 1-844 424 0500. That's 1-844 424 0500. We try to keep the show fun and informal while being informative at the same time. We also take music requests as long as you provide us with a comment or a question that's actually about the project. With me today is my usual co-host, Jennifer Ashwazagai Pereira, my colleague and an Indigenous Engagement and Traditional Knowledge Specialist at Atkins Realis. Jennifer is a member of Henvey Inlet First Nation, located on the French River, south of Sudbury, and works with me on our projects across Canada. So let's get started, Jen.
All right.
Today we got a really good topic, and one that I think that's really important to community members. And the topic is how Indigenous knowledge, or IK, is used in environmental and impact assessments. We think it's important to discuss these topics and share that discussion with our viewers and listeners. And this is a particularly important topic to community members. So let's get started and do a quick run through of today's topics. We're going to do a bit of a project background like we normally do to get everybody up to the same level of knowledge about the project. We're going to do a review of what Indigenous knowledge is. We're going to talk about how IK contributes to environmental assessments and impact assessments through some examples that include questions that we would typically ask community members in the collection of Indigenous knowledge. And then finally, we'll talk a bit about how you can get in contact with us. So let's talk, Jen, first about where the project is. The project is Webequie First Nation is located 200 to 250 kilometers from both Hudson Bay and from James Bay. And the actual planned road would extend from Webequie Airport to the southeast to the McFalls Lake area, which is in the heart of the Ring of Fire mineral deposit area. And in terms of the purposes of the Webequie Supply Road, the first is to move materials, supplies, and people from the airport to the McFalls Lake area. The second is to provide employment and economic development opportunities to Webequie community members, but in doing so, allowing them to preserve their language and culture and continue to live in their community. And then finally, to provide experience and training opportunities for youth and encourage them to pursue higher education or additional post-secondary education or training. And then in terms of the project itself, it's a planned 107 kilometer long gravel road. 17 of those 107 kilometers sit on reserve lands. The actual area within which the road would be positioned is 2 kilometers wide, so that's sort of our preferred corridor. And so we're looking at that corridor, that band of land from Webequie Airport all the way to McFalls Lake area. And the road would sit somewhere in that 2 kilometer wide band of land. And then the actual cleared area would be 35 meters. In terms of water body crossings, there would be 3 water body crossings, the first being the Winnisk Lake, which is about 200 to 250 meter wide crossing. The second would be Winiscasis Channel, which is to the southeast of Webequie, and that's 30 to 40 meter wide crossing. And then the final one is the Mukatai River crossing almost at the end of the Webequie Supply Road, which is again 30 to 40 meters wide roughly. Typical of these projects, they're more than just the road itself. They include both temporary and they would include temporary and permanent aggregate or aggregate pits or rock quarry areas, and these are the places where we get the material to build the road with. And so those would include equipment for processing the rock, meaning crushing it into the appropriate sizes for the different uses in building the road. There would be construction camps. There's actually 4 planned along the route. These would be temporary. They are set up to accommodate construction crews, and they would typically include supportive infrastructure like wastewater treatment plant and a water storage for drinking water. And then typically associated with construction camps, you have storage and laydown yards where materials and equipment are stored as well. So, Jen, we're ready now to get to the heart
Okay.
of the matter. The heart of the matter.
What
But
is
before we do that,
IK?
that's
Oh, we
right.
need a song.
We need a song. So I'm going to let you go first with your song choice because I think I went
Okay.
first last time.
Okay. So here's something I just recently came across, and this is a Cree and Salish artist from Saddle Lake. Her name is Tia Wood, and I love her song Dirt Roads, and that's the one I'm hoping we play, as she kind of mixes some contemporary with a little bit of traditional style in there, and it's amazing. And she's also been recently featured in Vogue magazine.
Vogue magazine. Wow.
Vogue magazine.
That's the big time.
Putting a plug in for her. That's right.
Wow.
Upcoming album, and it's called Dirt Roads.
Okay, we're back. Just want to remind everyone that they can call or text us at 1-844-424-0500. That's 1-844-424-0500. We do take music requests as long as you provide us with a comment or question about the project. So, Jen, what is
Don,
IK?
what
I
is
ask you.
IK? What is it not?
That's a better question, right, Jen? Because
I think
there
so.
is no single definition, is there, Jen? There's no single definition.
It
Um,
is, yes, it's very large and very all-encompassing, I would say.
y- yeah, I mean, one of my bullet points in the presentation is represents the world's view of Indigenous people. Well, that's a big view, right? It's hard to capture that
Yep,
in a few words.
absolutely. And I
It's
like one of the
holistic.
other description, holistic, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's the definition of holistic, really, right? Because
I
it
think
just
so
takes
because one of the
everything.
and really considers I'm an Anishinaabe, so I will say ours every once in a while. It considers our reciprocal relationship with the land because
Yeah.
whenever the land provides for us and then in turn we need to look after her, right?
Yes. Yes.
And be
You're exactly
respectful.
right. Yes. Um, Another great definition of IK is it is a body or collection of knowledge built up by a group of indigenous people over generations of living closely connected to the land. Love that definition.
Yeah, since time immemorial, some would say.
Yes, yes, that's a really popular phrase I've noticed. Yeah, yeah. IK, another one here, Jen. IK, and is always changing. It's cumulative, meaning it builds on top of itself. It grows with time. It changes with everything else, right? With social, spiritual, environmental, political, and environmental changes or economic changes. Um, so it's a very dynamic thing. You can't just pin it down and just, it's not what it used to be to non-Indigenous people, which was generally speaking, you know, points, lines, and polygons on a map. It's not just
Hmm.
that. It's way more than that. That's what it was, in the non-Indigenous world viewed as. So, typically on projects, someone like me would sit down with community members and map burial sites and cultural landscapes and harvesting locations, spiritual sites, ceremonial areas, archaeological areas, all that kind of information. But that's not what IK is on its own. That's a big part of it. Don't get
That's
me
right.
wrong, right?
Hmm.
And it's an important part of it. That mapping is really important. It's still done to this day, but it's not all of it. And
That's right.
you know,
It extends beyond
there's
that and into a whole bunch of other areas.
yeah, and we've collected in this project IK input not only from maps but from surveys, from focus groups, sitting down with community members, talking, collecting. I mean, you and I have had some great experiences sitting with community members and having conversations, collecting information and about traditions that the community has and the governance of the community, traditional governance, and how decisions are made, and just listening to stories and oral histories, things like that. There's a lot of different forms it can take, and I don't even think this captures everything either, to tell you the truth. But
Oh, absolutely
um,
not, because we hear so
no,
much when we're in community because there's a lot of nuances as well, right? That you learn
yes,
to capture while you're sitting there.
yeah, yeah, no, that's so true. And um, let's talk a little bit about the importance of IK in the assessment process, because this has grown significantly in the last few years. Traditionally,
Huge.
you and I know in the past, right, that typically this would just be put in one section, a relatively small section, um, of the document of the EA document, and that would be that. But now the expectation from the regulators, meaning the federal government and the provincial government regulators that oversee the impact assessment and environmental assessment process, is that IK be part of everything, right? Be factored in
Mm-hmm.
and considered in everything, and so that is what the expectation is, and that is what the reality is. Obviously, it's still maturing, right? And it will continue to mature. Um, so it's now feeding into all aspects, including the natural environment side, which is the one that it typically fed into more than other areas previously, but
Mm-hmm.
also in social and socioeconomics, and you and I can speak to the health side too, right? It's a huge input to the health side. You and I have been involved in the human health impact assessment work that's being done with Webequay on the Webequay Supply Road project, and that was pretty. There's been some pretty intense work done with community members on that to find out the baseline, right? To get that snapshot of conditions
Right.
in the community.
And when we talk about those baselines don't just start, when the potential road was thought about, because we're looking
Yeah.
back towards when the Hudson Bay Company came to the area. We're looking at
Yes.
when the trap line system was put in. We're looking at the Indian Act, at treaty. So those are some of the things also that the baseline is capturing, along with community history throughout those times as well, as much as we can anyway.
Oh, absolutely. So IK's prominence and role has increased substantially. Again, it's still evolving, right? It'll become more and more important with time. Um, I think the biggest challenge, for technical experts is trying to figure out how to integrate or combine, Western science with Indigenous knowledge. But I think there's a lot going on in that area, and I think there's a lot of projects or progress being made, I guess, in that area, and good examples out there as to how IK can be effectively integrated. I mean, we've we've uh, we've seen it firsthand ourselves on this project, in terms of um, integrating IK, and we'll get into some examples in a couple of minutes, uh, illustrating that, especially when we talk about fish and fish habitat and other kinds of studies that we've done. But before we do that, let's play another musical interlude here. Um,
Oh, what's he gonna
I am
pick?
going. I am going to. Well, this is from my list from last week, like
Okay.
leftovers, and it's one I remember you mentioned too. So I think you'll like this one. And the song's called "Simple Man" by Leonard Skinner. And
Nice.
so if our technical team can bring that up, that would be great. And so let's listen to "Simple Man" by Leonard Skinner.
All right.
Mama told me when I was young, and sat beside me, my only son. And listen closely to what I say. And if you do this, troubles will come, and they will pass. We'll find a woman, yeah, and you'll find love. And don't forget, son, there is someone up above. And be a simple kind of man, or be something you love and understand. Baby, be a simple kind of man. Oh, won't you do this for me, son, if you can? Get your lust for the rich man's gold. All that you need is in your soul. And you can do this, baby, if you try. All that I want for you, my son, is to be satisfied and be a simple kind of man, or be something you love and understand. Baby, be a simple kind of man. Oh, won't you do this for me, son, if you can? Oh, yes, I will. Oh, don't you worry, you'll find yourself. Follow your heart and nothing else. And you can do this, oh babe, if you try. All that I want for you, my son, is to be satisfied and be a simple kind of man, or be something you love and understand. Baby, be a simple kind of man. Oh, won't you do this for me, son, if you can? Baby, be a simple man, or be something you love and understand. Baby, be a
Leonard Skinner.
I did. That's one of my husband's favorite songs.
It's a great song. It's a fantastic song. It's been covered a number of times too. I've got another
Mhm.
Leonard Skinner for you later on. So
Oh, you do?
it's oh yeah, it's a good one. It's one of my favorites too. So
Oh, I have Alicia
and
Keys
it's
for later.
not what you probably think. Let me just leave it at that. I'll surprise you.
I don't
So,
even know. I don't even know. I don't know a lot of songs, Don, or who really
oh,
sings
you'll
what.
recognize
So
these,
I'll
Jen.
be
Yeah,
I'll be
everybody knows these
surprised.
songs. Yeah,
Okay.
you'll be surprised. Yeah, I think you'll be surprised. Okay. So now we're going to talk about how IK contributes to EAs and IAs through the use of some examples. So why don't we start off with one of the more popular areas, and that's fish and fish habitats. So the best way I thought to illustrate, the IK associated with this, or how it's collected, is I thought to ask a series of questions that we would ask of community members, right? If we were sitting down with them trying to collect IK. So some of the questions we had were, which species of fish do you eat, right? So trying to understand the key species. We can, as the Western science people, we can speculate all we want, but more often than not, we learn new things, and certain species are are more popular maybe than the scientists think, right? Just because of local
Mm-hmm.
customs or whatever. And I mean, I know in some communities, or even within in Webquay itself, from clan to clan, they have some clans have certain fish species that they value more highly than maybe others, or that they will eat, while other clan members from other family groups um, don't eat that species, right? So you get that kind of variation. So that's one question. Another question, which is a key one, and we certainly ask these questions for our human health impact assessment, was do you consume all parts of the fish or use the non-consumed parts for other purposes?
Oh, I have to
So,
jump in here because this is making me
sure,
think about something. So one of the
sure.
things I've been noticing that's been coming back or being reclaimed is the tanning of fish hides. And so some
Oh,
people will
really?
tan them, yeah, and sometimes dye
Huh.
them and make accessories like purses and bags and other things like
Huh.
that. So I thought that was really cool because I first noticed it in a museum when I visited Chisasibi, and I saw that there.
Hmm.
And then in my region, people have been experimenting with using those fish hides, and I thought that was pretty awesome,
That's interesting. Yeah, yeah, that's
isn't it?
really interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really
I
utilizing most parts of the fish.
I'm just trying to think if I've ever seen anything made from fish hides, like or what I have seen that's been made from them. I don't know. I'm trying to think of examples, but that's really interesting. Wow.
That's
Yeah,
very
because
cool,
it's
eh?
quite surprising, eh, Jen? Like different communities, right? Like you'll talk about, okay, what do you use these different parts of the fish if they don't consume them, right? Eat them.
Hmm.
More often than not, them use them for something else because there's just so little waste, right?
That's
And
right,
even
because
what's
of
left over isn't
sustainability.
just thrown in the garbage. It's actually given back to nature, right? There's a proper way
Or you can make
to,
stock.
or you can make stock. That's right. Yeah, yeah. So that's really interesting. Other questions would be, do you have specific areas where you fish? Have these locations changed over time, right? Um, where are the spawning areas for the species that you eat? Um, like for example, like when you look at that question, as the technical team, we that's an important question for us, right? Because we need that to know that information to be able to do the surveys that we did before, spawning surveys. So we actually sat down with community members and asked these questions, and they gave us the locations of where the spawning did occur. And that was important in ensuring that the road didn't interfere with these areas. And it also allowed us to conduct surveys, proper spawning surveys where there is spawning of a particular species. So no one knows better than the community members who have lived on the land since time immemorial, as they say, right?
As they say, that's right.
What
And
what times?
adding one more thing though, Don,
Sure.
because we're
Yeah.
talking about spawning sites, we're talking about people's fishing areas and stuff like that, and that's not information that we publish publicly. And I think that's pretty
You
important
know,
to note. We look
yeah,
after that information, and while we're making, or the road is being designed, and where exactly the road will go, those things are considered, of course, but that information always stays with community. And when we're talking
yeah.
to other communities, we sign a data sharing agreement or something along those lines. And yeah, once again, we don't appropriate that information for any kind of reasons. Just so you know that, we won't tell everybody where your good spots are, or where some of your sacred locations are.
That's right. It's used to help identify impacts, potential impacts, right?
Right.
It's not we're not trying to, do like an exercise where we show all the information, all the spawning sites or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking that information, it's using it to inform decision making, and that's it. It's not to be shared. Like you said, we have these agreements that we sign. We take them seriously, and they're important to inform the decision making that's done. And then another kind of question that's asked is, what times of year do you fish for each species? So that helps us as a project team in terms of identifying construction timing, right? What activities can
Mm-hmm.
occur where, uh, and when, right? Um, Timing of fisheries surveys. When's the best time to be doing these surveys? And so, a lot of these questions guide us sort of operationally. They guide the way the work is done in the studies, but they also provide information for the future in terms of when we get to the construction stage, right? And all the things to consider then. So that's Fish and Fish Habitat. And I think, Jen, it's time for one of your musical selections. Just before we jump into that, I'll just remind everyone they could call or text us at 1-844-424-0500. That's 1-844-424-0500. So, Jen, you've got another musical selection, I think, do you?
Yes, I'm going to dig in the vaults a little bit. So I would like to hear Girl on Fire by Alicia Keys, but featuring Nicki Minaj, because I kind of like Nicki Minaj and I like this version.
I think I know that version too. That's a really good one. Yeah, yeah. Let's see if our technical team has that. Do they have that in hand?
We got it done.
Excellent. They have that. So let's listen to that. And that was "Girl on Fire" by Alicia Keys, and
Featuring Nicki Minaj.
featuring Nicki Minaj. And then we'll come back right after that.
Spirit of Marilyn calling me audibly, boiling. She said that she would never leave, continue to torture me, telling me to come with her underneath my comforter. And she brought a gun with her, pills and some rum with her. Took me on the balcony, telling me to jump with her. Yeah, I'm in the ghost, but I ain't doing stunts with her. I ain't trying to be that, haters wanna see that, but I got him aggy, cause I win the gold like Gabby.
She's just a girl and she's on fire. Hotter than a fantasy. Only like a highway. She's living in a world and it's on fire. Filled with catastrophe, but she knows she can fly away. Oh, she got both feet on the ground and she's burning it down. Oh, she
air, God. Make the fire disappear when they stare, God. Take away my fear when they interfere, God. Do you fear God? Cause I fear God. And in my backyard, that's a deer, God. And that's a horse ranch. And to my core fans, keep repping me. Do it to the death of me. X in the box, cause ain't nobody checking me.
This girl is on fire. This girl is on fire. She's walking on fire. This girl is on fire. She's just a girl, but she's on fire.
Okay, we're back and moving along in our discussion of how we use IK and environmental assessments and impact assessments. Um, Now we're going to talk a little bit about wildlife surveys, Jen. And
Okay.
this is a big one, as you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the types of questions we would ask for the wildlife surveys, one of them might be, where do you typically find different wildlife species? So, um, the science team, excuse me, the technical team has areas that they suspect would be heavily used based on maybe vegetation or the landscape
Habitat.
type
Mm-hmm.
or previous studies or whatever. And that's important information. But ultimately, it's the community members who, because they rely on the land, right? They rely on the land for filling their freezers and survival to a degree. They're the ones with the real knowledge of the movement of the animals, the behavior of the animals in different weather conditions, times of year, etc. So that is sitting down and talking to community members about that is a really, really good exercise in terms of understanding where the animals are and what they do at different times of year. And we've done caribou collaring as part of our work, and that caribou collaring work is basically, you know, it tells us exactly where those animals have been, and it corresponds pretty closely with what community members say, right? It
That's right,
changes.
because
It
community members have the most up-to-date information
They
all the
do, right?
time.
Because they're depending on it, right? Like in order to be successful as a harvester, you got to know your business, right? And you got to understand, where the animals are going to be and anticipate where they're going to be and be able to adapt to changing weather conditions and things like that. So um, there's a lot of indigenous knowledge that's collected, through when you're talking about like where do you find wildlife species. The
Mm-hmm.
other one would be,
And the
where are the
health,
preferred, and the health. Yeah, yeah,
and the
yeah.
health of the
That's a good one
species.
too, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they harvest, right, they may see things. Whether it's failing
Especially
health
in the
of
livers.
animals in the livers. Yeah, I mean, they might see, maybe uh, insect bites or signs of stress, right, on the animals that might occur, for periods of time. There might be an outbreak of a certain insect or whatever that feeds on
Ticks.
caribou or ticks, things like that. Yeah. So I mean, that's where you get the most up to date, accurate information about what's going on out there in in that wild world of ours, right? And
Out in the wild.
out in the wild, yeah. And like things like other questions would be like, where are the preferred hunting areas, right, for different species?
Hmm.
Um, when do you hunt different species? Uh, and like that does change, right? It does change from year to year. It depends on weather conditions and lots of different things. But
Yeah, the migration of geese, for instance.
yep,
I understand there's a spring and a fall goose hunt, and so those windows might be variable depending on the migration and the weather.
yeah, and the community members know, right? They know when
Hmm.
the conditions are ripe, for example, for if you're talking about migratory birds like geese, right? They know when the conditions are right for them to be passing through on their way further north, right? And I mean, we've had conversations. I know I've had conversations with community members where they've asked me, in Toronto, like, have you seen any geese around, right? And
Yeah, some of
because
them just
they're
live there year round.
well, they do. Lots of them do, right? But they'll say, like, they'll ask. I remember one of our wildlife biologists. I think he was because he's a bird watcher. He was talking about having seen them, passing through a certain location on Lake Ontario or whatever. So I remember we passed that information on to Webequie community members, and they said, "Oh, okay. Well, then they should be up in our area by X date, right?" So
Yeah.
so there's that sort of like communication that goes on, but they know when the conditions are lined up perfectly, right? For when there's enough open water out there, when the ice is cleared for the geese to come up and stage in different areas, right? So um, the other thing might be like, where are the nursery areas for large mammals such as caribou and moose? And like the scientists, the Western scientists can look at the landscape and identify, well, typically these areas are characterized by being on peninsulas and isolated from other areas,
Yeah, and they look
and
like prime locations.
yeah, like so they can theoretically identify areas, but the community members always know, right? They know where
Right.
these nursery areas are and these birthing areas are for sure. So well, I think we're ready for another song. And before we go to that, I'll just remind everyone they can call or text us at 1-844-424-0500. That's 1-844-424-0500. And my next music selection, Jen, is
Okay.
by Leonard Skinner again. And I'm sure you've heard this one before, but you may not have heard it for a while. It's called Saturday Night Special.
Saturday night special.
So let's see if our technical team can dig that one up. Hopefully they can.
We got it done.
Deep in the
They've got
vaults.
it deep in the vaults. They have. So let's listen to Saturday Night Special by Leonard Skinner, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes to continue our discussion.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Like special. And I'd like to tell you what you could do with it too.
Okay, I hope everyone enjoyed Saturday night's special by Leonard Skinnard. We're back, Jen, and now I thought we'd move on to talk a little bit about visual impact analysis. This is one of the less obvious areas of the EA and IA, and some of the questions you might ask would be things like, how do you access where you hunt and fish? What routes do you take to get there? And the reason why we'd ask those questions is you're trying to understand the importance of the visual, right, of the landscape views, because that's all part of the experience, right, of being on the land. And so that's where visual impact analysis sort of plays into things. It's an important one. Another question might be, are there special areas of your homeland, such as spiritual sites, where views of the landscape are especially important, right? You don't want to impact those areas, so you want to know about where those areas are, and and if you want to adjust the road so that it might not impact those views if they're considered important. Um, let's talk a little bit about noise impact as well too. This is another one of the less obvious ones, but an important one as well too, in defining that experience, right, Jen? Because you're used to, if you're talking about, going out into the bush and enjoying that experience, it's being out there by yourself and being able to think and not have really, disturbing noises around you, really loud noises around
Yeah,
you,
there's
other
no
than
no
just,
man-made noises. We hear the birds, we
yes,
hear the wind in the
exactly.
trees, footsteps,
Yeah.
all these
So
little things, right?
that's right. And so you want to know those specific areas where noise from the road could affect your enjoyment of activities, right? And
Hmm.
and try to figure out where to put the road so that it wouldn't impact that experience too much anyway, because it's so important, culturally and spiritually, and it's an important part of, family bonding as well too. So these are all key factors. And then, when we look at things like routing the road, right, trying to figure out where the road should go. Like I know with the Webquay Supply Road project, the route coming out of the settlement, the actual Webquay settlement is kind of a funny shaped road. But the reason why it
Hmm.
follows that shape is, it's because community members, had input on it, right, and identified, um, areas that they wanted the road to stay away from or to be close to. It's in some cases. So
Yeah,
there was this push and pull, right, going on in terms of where the road should go. And
and I think some of them
go ahead,
didn't
Jen.
want to be crossing. Some of them didn't want to be crossing too many water bodies. Zag, when you look at the map for the preferred route.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Yeah. Well, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, want to limit that, and that's a good thing, right? Because we don't want to impact
Hmm.
fish and fish habitat for
Water.
sure.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. Let's move on to another big one, which is climate change. You and I have spent a lot of time talking to community members, asking questions, and some of those questions were about climate change, weren't they?
Yes, and that was huge because I think I want to say hot topics
Yep.
was about
Hmm.
ice conditions, right?
Yes.
And people talked about the ice isn't the same color as it used to be. It's punky in some spots, and then people really have to consider personal safety. So people are discouraged from going out alone. They are encouraged to bring radios and that other people at home know where you're going and when you're expected back. So there's a lot of safety things with respect to the way the ice has been behaving in the last number of years, according to community members in Webequie.
Yeah, that's great. We had some really good conversations. Climate change is such an interesting topic to talk with community members about because they have that generational knowledge, right? And they can talk about
Mm-hmm.
previous generations and how things have changed, right? And in what way they've changed over the years. So it's always really interesting. Um, our last area is vegetation, and this is an important one because plants, are used not only for food uh, in the
Food and
community
medicine.
and medicine, but yeah, also for medicine. And so it's
Yeah,
important to understand, like, the Western science people can have identify species at risk, like plant species at risk, and that's fine. But it's also important to know what are important species to community members. So that's another
that's
big
right.
one, huge
That's
one.
our
And
pharmacy and
and
grocery store out there.
exactly, that's exactly it. And you and I have heard some examples from community members about impacts on a certain species of berries, right? And they're not where they were before. Maybe they've shifted to
Mm-hmm.
other locations just because of changes in water levels or different environmental impacts. Lots of different reasons, potential reasons anyway. But yeah, wow, that was a jam-packed session, Jen. Lots to
It
talk
sure
about in there,
was.
wasn't there? So that wraps up today's discussion of how IK is used in environmental and impact assessments. And we hope it was helpful and encourages you to join us again next week at the same time when we talk about the preliminary results of the caribou study. So please don't
That'll
forget
be
to keep in
interesting.
touch. Yeah, yeah. Don't forget to keep in touch with our project team members via the contact information available on our website, supplyroad.ca. Miigwech, and we will talk to you again next week. Right, Jen?
Right. Bamapi.